focus of today's edition of State Affairs. And what is the title? Political Lies and Lying to the Nigerian Public. That is the title of this deep work of politics, history, and power. I am Edmondo Bilo. I welcome you to this edition. So stay with us. In this work, the author, Professor John Ayoade, makes the point: it is not only politicians who lie. He says politicians lie because their constituencies are prone to accept lies. John Ayoade makes the point that in a way, therefore, some proportion of their constituencies are passive liars. Do you lie? Let's read from the work. The show is about the power of knowledge to redefine society. And that power can be drawn from political literatures. So State Affairs is also about books. Let's start this edition by reading. I want to read from page 38 of the work in review. The author says Ibrahim Babangida was almost coasting home as the foremost contender for the position of the maker of modern Nigeria. He quotes another writer, until he decided to shred his own testimonials by annulling the most credible election that Nigerians yet have. There and then, the general lost his last battle, which, unfortunately, was even pointless. He punished innocence and covered up impunity. He was otherwise creative, innovative, and amiable, but he loved office more than Nigeria. Are you reading with me? I'm reading from the work, Political Lies and Lying to the Nigerian Public. A Billy Dudley lecture delivered in 2022 by John Ayoade, Emeritus Professor of Political Science, University of Ibadan. The professor continues. Almost 30 years after the unpardonable sin against the guard of democracy, Babangida still fights shy of telling Nigerians why he betrayed them. His excuse that it was to avoid a bloody coup is unbecoming of a commander-in-chief who earlier in his military career had successfully botched a coup with bare hands. Sani Abacha was not given to finesse in action or words. He had a mastery of privatizing the public. What does that mean? Privatizing the public. Professor Ayoade says Abacha's style was crude, direct, and deadly. He comes to Obasanjo. The Prof says Obasanjo's style betrays the clear cowardice of courage in denying what is clearly in the public domain. His denial negates the Yoruba advice that any person who consumes the sacrifice to the gods must have courage. He who denies such facts, as Obasanjo does, is prone to continue to live by being counterfactual. What do political scientists mean by counterfactual? Ayoade in this political literature makes the point that Obasanjo has a mastery of deception and is skillful in surrogate management, but his continued denial of what even infants know is embarrassing has become a question for analysis. Is that not why he calls them lies? He says in spite of these contraries, Olusegun Obasanjo is endowed with charisma, public respectability, and goodwill. I just read from the work Political Lies and Lying to the Nigerian Public, written by John Ayoade, Emeritus Professor of Political Science, University of Ibadan. Are you interested in getting this incisive work? From Monday, you would find it on udarabooks.com. udarabooks.com. But you can also get it through the WhatsApp numbers pinned to this broadcast. Just send us a WhatsApp message asking for this work. It is an incisive political literature, and it forms the fulcrum of today's discussion on state affairs. Are you with the radio, man? I am with you. Welcome to my word. Welcome to reason. Welcome to politics. And welcome to power. Let me make these points. Author of the books, The End of History and the Origin of Political Order, remember him? Francis Fukuyama. He says that things that happened hundreds or even thousands of years ago continue to exert major influence on the nature of politics. He posits that the understanding of institutions is the knowledge of their origins and the forces that created them. This notion is critical in understanding Nigeria. Take note of this point too. No society can be surely flourishing and happy of which the far greater part of the members are poor and miserable. Those are the words of Adam Smith. So the point I make with these quotes is that laws are reasons for the common good. Why? They preserve the values of love, unity, harmony, and prosperity. When laws are made and managed by those who care not of the community, poverty and violence reign. Is that why Nigeria is poor? Somehow, we have to make things right. When our laws punish vice, they will reward virtue. And you will find examples of this in the work we are about to review. By this principle, justice is ensured as meritocracy is ingrained in the consciousness of the people of the state. It is such that makes the people attempt purity and be released from the law. By this, freedom is attained, freedom of person, freedom of the press, and freedom of association. It is Edmondo Pillow on State Affairs. Professor John Ayoade, it's good to have you.
Thank you.
On State Affairs.
Thank you very much.
How are you, sir?
I'm okay. Okay, so far so good.
How is Nigeria?
Well, I must say that the Nigeria some of us knew has evaporated. It's a different country now, and we are trying to learn about the new country we live in, what I will call the new Nigeria. Is the Nigeria outside our dreams. We are thinking of a Nigeria of our dreams, but we have not got there. It's still far-fetched.
There was an old Nigeria.
Yes.
And now this is a new Nigeria.
Yes.
What has changed?
I must say that, quite unfortunately, any country that finds its past better than its present has a problem. In the old Nigeria that I experienced, going to primary school, going to college, going to the university, was much better than this. There was assurance, there was a future that you can plot for yourself. There was certainty. Now you live in a country that you sleep with only one eye closed because of insecurity. You live in a country where there is no certainty of prices. You bought something yesterday, you go back to the market today with the same amount of money. You get there dejected, surprised, embarrassed, and you cannot say that you know the place. So you live in a country that you cannot claim to know. Then there's a problem.
The point you make is that the past is better than now.
Yeah, I would think so, and I have reasons for saying so. I must say that years ago, when I was to come to the University of Ibadan for my undergraduate studies, I was in a medium-sized town in Osogbo. I posted a letter with 2 pence to the University of Ibadan. I got a reply back in Osogbo. It was sure to come, and it came. Today, you cannot be too sure that if you send a letter from Bodija to Makola, that it will arrive there. And that's a long shot from what it used to be.
If the past was better than now, what do you see of the future?
Of course, a future partakes of the present. And that future has, for it to be better than the present, has to be re-engineered so that you can be sure of what you get. If the present is not properly handled, it will produce a future either worse than itself or similar to itself.
When you say re-engineered, what do you mean by that?
What I mean is that a future has to be deliberately planned, deliberately structured, and with the consent of all the people, all hands on deck, and with a leadership that is futuristic, a leadership that is ready, has a focus, and is ready to lead the people selflessly towards that future. So it takes two things. First, there must be a plan. Second, there must be a focus, and it must be something that is implemented and implementable by people who are determined to have a good future.
You are an emeritus professor of political science.
Yes.
I have read a lot of your works.
Thank you.
And I'm saying, did political scientists like you did you see this coming?
Yeah, in a way, years ago, we were talking about kleptocracy in the 80s. But that's a child's play with what we have gone through in the past decade. And but we saw it coming, that morality, political ethics, social ethics disappeared from the country gradually. And we talked about it and warned against it, but nothing was done. That's why we got ourselves into the abyss that we are in now.
You know, I'm also asking, intellectuals, is their role just about warning? If nothing is done, can't intellectuals also act to make sure that we get it right?
Yeah, that's one thing that could be done. You could move from theory to practice. You could move from theory to activism. But then there's division of labor in this business. If you are to think out things, you also expect people in the field to do something about it. Some of us have in fact complained that we are not seeing the effects of the products that we push out from the universities. We were expecting that some of the people that we gave these theories would also move ahead and practicalize it. That has not happened. So that means also that we have to look at our curriculum and also see whether we can realign that curriculum into getting people to practice, not just theory, but also getting a part of the praxis as part of their training.
Can you describe what I'm doing here as a practice of political science?
Of course, what you are doing is what I will call the extension service of political theory, bringing it to reality and getting people to see it from what is happening on the streets rather than what is thought of in the laboratories and in the libraries of the universities. Talking to the public is critical to getting things right in a country.
Are you just joining the broadcast? My guest, John Ayoade, is Emeritus Professor of Political Science, University of Ibadan. Our former president, Nigerian Political Science Association from 1987 to 1989. John Ayoade was Director of Studies, Center for Democratic Studies, Abuja, from 1990 to 1995. He was Dean, Faculty of the Social Sciences, University of Ibadan, from 1997 to 1999. He was also a member, National Political Reform Conference organized by President Olusegun Obasanjo in 2005. We are looking at his work, Political Lies and Lying to the Nigerian Public. Why did you decide to write on this subject?
Well, in the first place, I was taught by Professor Billy Dudley of blessed memory.
Tell me about him. I've read a lot about him.
Okay. Professor Dudley was a political philosopher, one of the leading lights at the University of Ibadan during his time, and taught us political philosophy and also encouraged us to think politically and theorize politically. And he made an impact on the lives of students who were lucky to be under his tutelage at the time. I was head of the Department of Political Science for years, and then he moved out and became director of the National University Commission Office in London to recruit staff for Nigerian universities. And he passed on, still at his job. That was Professor Dudley, Billy James Dudley.
Billy James Dudley.
Yes.
I remember quoting him about 5 times in my master's thesis when I did political science.
Wonderful.
In UI.
Oh, very good. Very good.
So this lecture is in honor of Billy Dudley.
Yes. I was not only a teacher at the University of Ibadan, he was a national public figure because his life radiated in the lives of students at the time and even after his death. So he deserves to be honored. And that's why the Nigerian Political Science Association has established an annual lecture in his memory. And this was the 2022 edition of that annual lecture.
So why did you go for the topic, Political Lies and Lying to the Nigerian Public?
Living through lies in Nigeria, I have discovered that it's an area that we have not talked enough about, and that it is necessary to look at why lies and look at what we gain from lies and what one can call the social and systemic effects of lies on the Nigerian polity. So it's an area that we must focus on now if we are going to change what is going on. I remember that at some point, even Shagari talked about ethical revolution. And so even in Shagari's time, lies were already there, and lies were being circulated all over the place. But it has become more or less second nature in Nigerian politics now. And for us to be able to stem it, we must focus attention on lies and expose the implications of lies and the effects of lies on the Nigerian polity.
You agree that lie is prevalent in every society?
Yeah, in fact, people lie everywhere. But then when somebody who takes an oath to obey the Constitution and to serve the people lies, that's worse than just lying. Because you are lying on oath. And that's why that requires more attention now than we have ever given to it.
But you also make the point that savvy liar politicians, more often than not, record spectacular electoral success because honesty is not often rewarded. So why should I not lie?
Well, first, the fact that savvy liars win elections does not really mean that we should follow them. But unfortunately, the majority of the people follow liars. And I'll tell you why people follow liars. For example, when what a liar says agrees with what the listener has in mind, there's a correspondence, and therefore that fellow will believe the lie. Now, such a person who believes lies is also a passive liar, because given the opportunity, he too will lie. And so the correspondence between somebody's thoughts and what somebody says creates a kind of agreement. And that's why voters sometimes vote for a lie. But in addition to that, there is also the issue of ignorance. There are people, they don't know enough. So whatever the man says is gospel. There are people, those people can be forgiven because they don't know. And so that also means that we must now work hard for political education so that we can let people know the basics of politics and the principles, as well as the reason for politics and what we get out of it.
You started the lecture by looking at the United States.
Yes.
And you were not quite friendly with Donald Trump. Most of the
Donald
statistics.
Trump is also not very friendly with himself. He still continues to play pranks.
So should we say Donald Trump is a liar?
Of course, he is a liar. But, liars sometimes have followers. And so one has to look at the sociology of lying as well as the economics of lying. Because these are things that determine whether people would accept lies or whether lies will succeed.
You said here, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were the two candidates at the 2016 presidential election in the United States.
Yes.
The campaign statements of Hillary Clinton were said to be accurate 70% of the time, while those of Donald Trump were said to be false 70% of the time.
Yes.
What kind of man is that?
Donald Trump is a player in politics. And he does not only, he's not just a player in politics, he also plays politics. And playing politics implies that you cannot take everything hook, line, and sinker.
You said despite his lies, the Americans preferred Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton as president, and he went ahead to win the election. The most successful project of political lying in a modern democracy. Is that what you called him?
Yeah, that's what the people call him. In fact, I was also referring to authors of the behavior of Trump. So I didn't just think it out myself. I was referring to the evidence produced by experts.
And you also make the point that the pervasiveness of lies has resulted in describing contemporary politics as the post-truth era.
Yeah.
You took that post-truth from Oxford.
Right. In fact, post-truth was regarded as the best word for the year by the Oxford Dictionary. And it's because people also felt that lying has become so significant, unfortunately significant, in the lives of people, that it has changed the era. We are now in the era of post-truth. Truth has become almost insignificant now. And for you to understand the society, you have to test and interrogate everything that you hear. Otherwise, you might fall prey to a lie. So everything now becomes something that you must examine properly before you accept it.
So should we say that a public that accepts lies is also a lying public?
Of course, the public, if the majority of the public accept lies, it's a lying public. Because those who accept lies, knowing them to be lies, are also like to lie if given the opportunity.
So a people deserve the kind of government.
They are liars in waiting.
So a people deserve the kind of government they get.
That's always true.
Always true.
Always true. A people deserve the kind of government they get. As long as people don't shout against a bad government, as long as people don't complain about a bad government, then they deserve the government they have. As long as people vote for a lying government, then they also are liars. They are in the company of liars.
Let me quote from your work. If the most electorally successful politicians are known to be liars, then the truth is at a discount in politics. What does that mean?
What it means is that liars control governments. For example, Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel has been described by his own people as the unbridled liar. But he's a fourth-term prime minister of Israel. So, in spite of the fact that people know that he lies, they continue to vote for him.
So lying in politics is not a Nigerian thing?
No, it's not a Nigerian thing. But Nigeria would have been better off if we don't continue this practice of lying.
But America is the strongest country in the world, and its politicians are liars.
Yeah, definitely America is the strongest country in the world, but it does not mean that it's giving us the best example when it comes to transparency and truth in governance.
Israel is being led by a liar.
Oh, yeah.
And Israel remains scientifically strong.
Oh, yes.
It's an advanced country.
But those are different things. Lying in governance has nothing to do with military power, for instance. Lying in governance does not mean scientific power. America is a top-ranked scientific country.
But I'm saying they are lying, yet their countries are advancing. How do we reconcile that?
Yeah, we can reconcile it by saying they are two different things and they should not be mixed. You can be good as a scientist, but you can be a liar, a social liar, and a political liar. They are two different things because the goal of the two activities are different. The goal of lying in politics is political power.
Mm-hmm.
The goal of science is truth,
so
verity.
So a political liar can accept scientific truth.
He can accept scientific truth, but truth can also be used for the purposes of lying. So, as they say, statistics don't lie, but statistics can be used to lie.
What is a lie?
A lie is what I would call a flight from the truth.
What is the truth?
Truth is something that is factual, that is empirical, that we can see with our eyes, and that other people also see the way we see it. But when somebody, in fact, one of the things about a liar is that a liar knows the truth. A liar starts with the truth. He knows it. But he takes a flight from that truth purposely for the benefit of himself or for the purpose of his organization.
And some can lie to prove a lie.
Yes, you can use, you lie to prove a lie. That becomes a meta lie. It's a higher level of lie, second order lie.
You know, I'm thinking, the politicians lie in America, yet they are advancing their societies. Politicians in Africa lie, and they are underdeveloping their society. What must be different in the human nature of both sides?
You see, politics is not just about the leaders. Politics is also about the totality of the environment. In the case of the United States, the environment is also able to check and balance the liars. The environment is strong enough to balance the lies of the liars.
So when you say environment, does that include institutions?
Institutions. They have strong institutions. The judiciary is there. The press is there. The people themselves are there. So there is a thus far and no further situation in some countries because those institutions will fight back. Now, in a country where those institutions are weak, where the political education of the people is also minimal, the check and balance is weak. And therefore, lies will continue to ride roughshod.
And undermine the society.
And undermine that society.
Is Nigeria an example of such a society?
Nigeria is a critical example of that.
I'm wondering why you quoted Hannah Arendt in your work. She went as far as saying that politics and truth do not mix, as truthfulness is not a political virtue. How?
Yeah, Hannah Arendt is a philosopher, and that's the position she takes. Intellectually, it's permissive for somebody. He has a right to think. She has a right to think the way she does, but the reality is also because we have mentioned that the most successful politicians are the most successful liars. Netanyahu, Boris Johnson, Donald Trump, these are liars. In fact, Boris Johnson was sacked. He was a journalist. He was sacked for filing untrue stories earlier on. And then he rose up and became prime minister. But not just that. He was also somebody who was able to pull out Britain from Brexit, from the European common market. And that's something some other people could not do. But he succeeded, but he also lied in order to get Britain out of the Union. So the fact that lies win most of the time also justifies what Hannah Arendt said, that truth is at a discount in politics. Politicians who have sweet tongues and so on can always mesmerize people, and get them to agree with them. But lies also have a shelf life. Lies have a lifespan, and eventually they can expire. They can also explode. So politicians must also know that the future of lies may not work in their favor.
You make the point that George Washington of the United States wasn't a liar.
Yeah, he was reputed never to have lied.
You give example of Jimmy Carter.
Yes, Jimmy Carter prefers to tell the truth even at the expense of the presidency.
So perhaps the reason he did not get a second term?
He didn't get a second term because he said it as it is.
The program is State Affairs. We are discussing the work, Political Lies and Lying to the Nigerian Public. a lecture delivered by Professor John Ayoade. It is the Billy Dudley Lecture 2022. You see this work? This is a work of political theory, a work of history, and a work of political analysis. It is a work you should read. Get a copy. Contact udarabooks.com through the WhatsApp numbers pinned to this broadcast. You should read this work. We will now begin to look at an example of political liars in Nigeria. Jonathan was the president of Nigeria from 2010 to 2015. I listened to President Jonathan talking about politics to many Nigerians, and he reminded us of a musician called Tony Wilson. Let's listen to Goodluck Jonathan.
I remember in the 70s, there is one musician called Tony Wilson. I don't know whether he's still alive. But then he used to sing one very song that the chairman of PDP, other leaders of political parties, deputy chairman of PDP too is here, and the politicians. Maybe I'm not one of you listening to Tony Wilson. He said that a politician is a man of many words, going to so many places, talking to so many people, telling so many lies. It used to be a song I loved so much then, that a politician is a man, so many words, going to so many people, talking to so many people, telling so many lies. But we want to change that concept. The present administration don't want to be that typical politician that will be going to so many places, talking to so many people, telling so many lies. That means that whatever you say, you must stand by it. And the only way to do that is to properly document what you have done so that people will go through and compare what you have been telling them and what you have done, and of course, what is on ground.
State Affairs with Edmond Nubilo is live.
Yes, that's Jonathan. Prof, you heard Jonathan. He spoke as a president. What do you think?
I think Jonathan, as a president, we did 2 books on him. Was not perhaps schooled enough for Nigerian politics, and he was honest about what he did, but what he did was not good enough. I also believe that he might have been a better person now out of office, because looking back, he might have seen some of the errors and so on. And sometimes you also want to blame people for the kind of advisors that they have. But somebody who appoints a bad advisor must take the blame. It's also his fault to have bad advisors.
But he lied too.
Of course. You know, when, for example, on an occasion, he was trying to define stealing. And he defined it in a way that even a primary school child will not agree.
He said stealing is not corruption.
Stealing is not corruption.
And you called that a lie.
Of course, it's a lie, big lie. It's a lie that hits the roots of our existence. So I think that he was also, as a leader, he was not too good at impromptu delivery. And he talked too often without being critical about what he says. But fortunately, the Nigerian society decided that it was not good enough for them. And so they denied him a second term.
Your focus in this lecture were on three political leaders in the history of Nigeria.
Yes.
Babangida, Abacha, and Obasanjo. Why did you pick on them?
I picked on those three because they were very critical to what Nigeria is today. And I also picked on them because particularly I picked on Babangida and Obasanjo because these are eminent gentlemen. These are people who contributed to the development of Nigeria, but it was like a relay race. They lost the baton towards the end of the race.
Can liars be gentlemen?
They were gentlemen in the sense that in other areas they performed very well. For example, Babangida established certain structures which were good, which could have let Nigeria out of the doldrums.
You were a consultant on MAMSA.
Yes, I was. MAMSA was something great. It was a process of civic education where it was planned to be an institution that would educate the Nigerian people. Because after the war, Germany went through a process of re-educating itself. And we thought that Nigeria also needed a clean start. Begin again, look at what happened, where did we go wrong, where do we want to go, and then educate people along those paths. That was the purpose of MAMSA. But then, as consultant to MAMSA, in the company of Friday Onoge, we talked about the fact that a government does not really need a PRO. The work of a government is the public relations for government. So a government does not need to set up an organization to tell people that it is good. People know what is good when they see it. So government should just do what is good. And once it does that, it doesn't need a mouthpiece to tell the people that it is doing well.
So did Babangida understand that concept?
He, to a point, understood it, but then he was overpowered by his own ambition, overpowered by the ambition to be a president, to convert from the military to a civilian president.
He wanted that?
Definitely he did, because he went on disqualifying people who wanted to contest election. He went on nullifying the election which took place and wanted Nigeria to start all over again. And that's what Professor Oyediran called transition without end. It means that we'll continue to have elections after elections, and there will be one reason or the other that the big man will nullify it. That's to show that there was something that we were not told.
So he was deceiving the people.
Definitely he did.
He knew what he was doing.
Definitely he knew what he was doing. It wasn't an accident.
How come political scientists like you, the Omo Moris, did not know what was going on?
Fortunately, some of us had doubts, but a military man is also trained in deception, in decoy. And so all along he knew what to do, but he was also clever to make sure that for every move, there is also a pleasant move in support. For example, he established two political parties, which...
That was after he cancelled, he reneged on handing over in 1990.
Yes. And then he established two political parties.
After banning the old politicians.
After banning the old politicians. And then said that politicians used to be the founders of the parties. And so this time he said there will be nobody funding, so that there's no godfather. There's no owner of a political party. That was a good concept. A political party should be a party for all the people.
Who gave him that concept? Did it come from the Center for Democratic Studies?
It did not come from Center for Democratic Studies. A head of state has many advisors, and bits and pieces were put together to put the two-party system together, including the political bureau. The political bureau also had an input into the two-party system. And it could have worked because, first, it was a process of uniting the people so that every party, the two parties, will be national, not parochial, not regional. Every party has to have office all over the country, in which case there is a spread, which we did not have in the First and Second Republic. So that was good. Second, the financing of the parties was also good. Government was going to assist, and then members of the party would take over the running of the party, not following a godfather, but that everybody we're all joiners and founders together. All right? So you cannot say it is Mr. X or Alhaji B that founded the party. That was a sharp break from what existed before.
NRC was center-right, SDP was center-left.
Yes. One to the left, a little to the left, a little to the right, because he was also afraid of Marxist orientation, but a little to the left.
Why was he afraid of Marxist orientation?
Well, it must have been part of the things he thought was wrong. He did not want a socialist or a communist party, but a party that would deal with the welfare of the people, a party that would take the people as the employer of the government. And so wanted, you must be able to take the people seriously and not override the people by going extremely to the left.
With the benefit of hindsight,
yeah.
do you think Babangida overexposed themselves to the concept of free market?
In a way, he tried to play between the two. But because he never really went the other way for a full free market. He still was interested in some form of control.
Remember structural adjustment program?
Yeah, the structural adjustment program was an infiltration from above.
He allowed
it. And unfortunately, it structured the wrong way.
It destroyed the economy.
Oh yeah, destroyed the economy, destroyed the middle class.
And we have not recovered.
We cannot recover unless we go back and do it right.
Under that situation, he was frittering millions of naira away in the guise of organizing a political system. He organized the June 12 elections. Did you see that he was going to annul that election?
Let me say, I did not see clearly that he was going to annul that election. Because as a master of deception, he was able to convince everybody that he meant well. He allowed INEC, or it was called NEC then, allowed them to go on conducting the election. It was only at the tail end that he appeared to have changed his mind. And but there were so many clandestine things that were going on at the time. The way organizations sprang up, the way organizations challenged the electoral law.
And one of those organizations,
Yeah.
Association for Better Nigeria,
Yeah.
that was led by Oton Ziribe, Babangida created it. Are you saying so?
Well, the general belief is that Babangida created it. And the reason they think that Babangida created it is that the Association for Better Nigeria violated the rules. Because it challenged the electoral law itself, which they had said was sacrosanct. So instead of arresting Zeribe himself, he did not arrest him.
Let's read from your work.
Yeah.
I want to read from page 30 of this work. And I'm going to start from the second line on page 30. Don't forget, this is a class of politics and power. And the lecturer in the class today is Emeritus Professor John Ayoade. We are analyzing history, politics, and power. We are breaking down his work, the political lies, and lying to the Nigerian public. This is the work we are analyzing. So I want to read from here. The objective of Association for Better Nigeria was to keep Babangida in power. You said that.
Yeah.
It demanded 4 more years of military rule, arguing that Nigeria was not ripe for democratic rule. Was that not a red flag?
It was a red flag, but people thought that if there was no backing from Aso Rock, it would not work.
At that time, Babangida had moved to Aso Rock
Oh, yeah.
from Dodan Barak,
Yeah. Yeah. He had moved from Lagos to
Abuja.
Abuja.
The fact that the activities of ABN were not stopped by the military government convinced people that the ABN was a baby of the military government.
Yeah.
In fact, it could not have been otherwise, because the Association for Better Nigeria violated the National Electoral Commission decree without reprisals. The leadership of ABN included Senator Francis Oton Ziribe, Abimbola Davis, Jerry Okoro, and allegedly Brigadier General Haliru Akilu of the Directorate of Military Intelligence. Why allegedly?
Allegedly because we did not have any document showing his name. But because he was in charge of military intelligence, he was also supposed to be able to do something about ABN, but he did nothing about it.
You continue. The ABN claims to have over 25 million members. The figure was spurious, as the members were not visible on the streets. The ABN filed a suit on June 11, 1993, at the Abuja High Court to stop the election, and the order was granted by Justice Ita Ikpeme. Babangida used the courts, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you feel that Ita Ikpeme should have been punished?
Oh, definitely. In fact, Ita Ikpeme wasn't initially in the court system. She wasn't in the judicial system. She worked in the chambers of Akpangbo, who was the Attorney General. And she was more or less brought in for that purpose.
Just like that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. So, it was a military government. It was a near totalitarian government.
Or it was totalitarian?
Well, I would say near totalitarian.
Why near? They could use the courts.
Near in the sense that even when he had total powers, he was still afraid of exercising or exhibiting the totality of the power.
You said the National Electoral Commission, relying on the ouster clause in the Electoral Decree 13 of 1993, went ahead to conduct the election. While the results were trickling in, the ABN again approached the Abuja High Court to stop the announcement of the results. The petition was granted by no other than the Chief Judge of Abuja, Justice Dahiru Saleh himself, in spite of the fact that the decree ousted the jurisdiction of the court.
Yeah, the decree said it wasn't subject to court process. But then the Chief Judge of Abuja sat over it, and nobody punished him for violating the law itself.
I think he made the argument that the election ought not to have held on that 12th of June.
Why shouldn't it have held?
Because there was already a court judgment.
The court judgment itself was in fact an abuse of the court process.
So this was Babangida playing the game of deception.
Because once there is the ouster clause in the law itself, why would the court now go ahead to say that the election must not be held?
You said on June 23rd, 1993, Babangida annulled the election and suspended the National Electoral Commission, arguing that the step was taken to save our judiciary from being ridiculed and politicized locally and internationally.
So who is the offender? Who is now being protected? The judiciary is the offender. Because you are protecting the judiciary because you don't want it to be ridiculed. The only way it could have been ridiculed is if it did the wrong thing. So the judiciary did the wrong thing. That's why you have to protect it so that it's not ridiculed. So you now protect the offender instead of allowing the system to go on.
The point you make in this literature that these processes were different forms of Babangida's lies.
Yeah. It's we were not told everything about what was going on.
There's this part that interests me a lot. That's page 31. You said, of course, there were powerful non-state political actors in the background, breathing down heavily on the government. Early in 1993, a delegation of the Center for Democratic Studies visited the Sultan of Sokoto Alhaji Dasuki on a transition sensitization visit. After the formalities, the hall was cleared and the Sultan requested the representatives of the management of the CDS to advise Babangida not to proceed with the election because, according to him, neither MKO Abiola nor Bashir Tofa was qualified to be the president. The management of CDS replied that it was already late to stop the process because the candidates were already on the campaign trail and the nation was expectant. The Sultan said that if the management of CDS could not advise President Babangida to stop the election, he would do himself.
Yes.
That is the Sultan here.
Yeah.
How would you interpret this?
There were what I would call powers behind the throne. Although the throne is higher than everybody, but there are also powers behind who, interestingly, were stronger than the throne, more powerful than the throne.
Can the Sultan be that powerful?
It could be that powerful religiously. He is taken as the head of all Muslims. So that's one area where he could exercise that power and influence. The other is, we said at the beginning that a lie is something you lie because you want to benefit from it. So, or you lie or you believe a lie because it agrees with what you also want, what you were thinking before. So if the Sultan tells Babangida something that agrees with what Babangida wanted, of course, they are collinear. They are in agreement, and therefore he would obey. And I think that there was a lot of that because spiritual leader, but as we say in politics, there is also politics behind the scene, which sometimes determines issues more than the politics on the scene. That's what they call the atrologia. It's something, there are things that nobody is ever told. Politics works at night most of the time, and politicians are night animals.
Yeah.
So, and you never, there are no minutes of such meetings, and the minutes are in the minds of the participants. So it's a question of what's going on, which is not in the public domain.
Why the night? Because as a political reporter, I even find myself working at night to know what the politicians are doing. Why do they like the night?
They like the night most of the time because they want to exclude other people. Women have been complaining that one of the reasons women are not many in politics is that it's a nocturnal game, and they are not given to that kind of thing. Second reason why it is a night game is that usually after the official meeting that they hold, if you find politicians say, "Hi, how are you? Very good. Where are you going now?" "I'm going home." "Okay, we'll see you later." There's going to be another meeting.
What can you take away from that statement by the Sultan? Do you now feel that the North was afraid of the coming of Abiola?
From what the Sultan was alleged to have said, at the meeting with CDS management. He felt that not just the North, but also himself would not benefit from a Southern president, at least not benefit maximally from a Southern president. And so he would also, just like ABN, he would also want Babangida that he knows to continue. So the devil you know is better than the one you don't know.
But Abiola was their friend.
Abiola was their friend. There is also a limit. There are gradations of friendship, hierarchies of friendship. Abiola was definitely a lower hierarchy of friend to the Sultan than Babangida.
But Babangida is not a Fulani.
It's not a Fulani, although at some point he also claimed that he was Fulani from Sokoto. So there was an attempt to be. And if there is that attempt, there will be no limit to such attempts to be accepted.
While reading your work, you have made the point that perhaps Babangida wanted to remain in office.
Yeah.
But you also make the point in this work that there was a plan that after Babangida, it would be the turn of Abacha. You believe there was that plan?
What I will call the things in the air was that there was an Egyptian style succession that was planned. Babangida would take the first shot, Abacha would follow, and then Joshua Dogoyaro would succeed Abacha. That is the rumor in the air. And of course, Babangida had stayed in. And after he annulled the election, part of the things that was also in the air, that was alleged, is that having annulled the election, he annulled the election so that he would not hand over to Abiola, because that would disrupt the plan in the books. And when you look at the interim national government decree, there is a subtle succession that is arranged in the in the national government decree. Yes. Now that if Shoneka could not handle the situation, the most senior military man would take over.
And Abacha was the most senior military
without
man.
naming names, Abacha was the successor.
Because some even wondered, why didn't he retire Abacha when he was living?
Well, it's part of the thing that we were not told.
So they were lying to Nigerians.
Of course, they were lying to Nigerians.
And Nigerians bought their lies.
Nigerians bought their lies. First, they were helpless. There was not much you could do to a military government arranging things among themselves. The other thing is Nigerians also thought that at some point the lies would explode. And it did.
Igwe Muyiwa says, we all know the truth, but we run from it. Igwe Muyiwa is asking, who will stop the lies or the liars? Femi Labi says, politics lie. Omotayo Oluwarotimi Onobamiro says, Awolowo is a very good example of a political liar. Prof, do you agree with him?
I would think that what he did was more in the interest of the people than the lies he told. All human beings lie. So I will not say that Awolowo never lied.
So lying is part of human nature.
Yeah, in fact, we opened the book by saying lie is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And that on the average, they said that Americans lie 11 times a week.
11 times a week?
A week. That's critical lies. Because there are lies, we will have to classify lies into three types. There are benign lies, lies that don't hurt. There are malignant lies. And then there are situational lies. And I'll tell you one example of a situational lie. In 1994, armed robbers seized my car, and they put me inside the car and drove me into the bush and told me, "We have been asked to kill you." And I told them, "I have not offended you, I have not done anything wrong, so I don't deserve to be killed." And they then said, because I think there was an internal problem from my office, that you collected 78,000 naira from the bank this morning. It was money to pay for a printer's job. I said, yes. And they said, where is the money? Go and bring it. And I said, I have paid Babagida Press in Abuja. That was a lie. The money was in the house. So it's a situational lie. I lie to get myself freed. Somebody says he will kill me. Anything I can do to be free from death, I will have to do. And I told them, and they said, we will go and ask Babagida Press. I said, jolly well, you can ask him. Because I know they will not go. They have no local standard to be asking Babagida Press. You collected 78,000. The man will say, what's your own business? And they would also have exposed themselves because they might be caught there having stolen my car. So there are benign, malignant, and situational lies. And one will have to look at what kind of lie was it. There are also public political lies, which is not just to save the person of the liar, but it will also ultimately hurt the polity.
So how would you describe Buhari's statement? I am for everybody and for nobody. Is that a lie?
Buhari was quoting somebody without acknowledging the person he was quoting. And it was not quite right in what he has said, because he did not know the implication of what he has said. Politically, you were elected to do a particular job. You took an oath to do that job. You cannot say you are not for anybody. You swore that you are for everybody. So that's a denial of your oath.
And that is a lie.
Of course, it's not just a lie. It's in fact, it's an offense. It's an offense against the Constitution.
But Plato talked about noble lie.
Yeah, noble lie. What Plato intended was the ultimate good of the society, stability of society. There are certain things that for him you have to do so that the society survives, because society is above everybody and the survival of society is in the interest of everybody.
So just you can lie to grow a country.
It's still a lie, but it's not because you want to have a particular benefit, personal benefit from it. You are lying for the benefit of the generality of the people.
So lie can be positive.
It can be positive. But, and I will give you one other example of that. In our culture, there are different things, superstitions we call them, which are actually lies. In my own place, they say you don't sit on a mortar, because anybody who has a mother will not sit on a mortar, because the person's mother will die. You know, when we were young, they told us that. Now, sitting on a mortar which is used for preparing food, it's not hygienic. But our parents didn't want to go through the length of explaining hygiene. And they know you love your mother. So they say if you sit on the mortar, your mother will die. And no way, I won't allow my mother to die. So that's a lie, but it's a beneficial lie because it trains people about hygiene without saying so.
Look at this. We'll come back to Abacha. You said the most classical of such comical defections in recent times is that of Femi Fani-Kayode.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, he had claimed that he would rather die than join the All Progressives Congress, which he equated with darkness. He described his rumored defection then as false and insulting. 2 years later, in September 2021, he defected to the APC, which he then described as a liberal party. So what kind of lie is that?
It's an irresponsible lie. It's a lie that, lying under public light. Everybody heard when he said joining APC is working with the devil. That is terrible. I would never do it. He would rather die. And then he joined the same party. And when people asked him, he said, how do you live without having power? So he lied to be in power. He said integrity is nothing if you don't have power with it.
Hitler made a statement like that.
Yeah.
What is the essence of truth without victory?
Yeah, well, that's but you're talking about a military man whose job is about victory, and so for him, he says what's important is victory. That's what his profession trains him to do.
Join the discourse. You can call in now. So the lines are open. We have opened the phone lines. The numbers are pinned to the broadcast. You can call on WhatsApp. I'm ready to pick your calls. So I've opened the WhatsApp numbers. So call in. If you have some questions for the Emeritus Professor of Political Science, John Ayoade, call in, ask your questions. If you want to contribute, you have other ideas you want to share with us, the lines are open. We are waiting for your call. You can call 080 999 18449. That is 080 999 18449. The numbers are displayed on the screen. You can also call 070 1294 1837. You can call on WhatsApp. If you are calling from outside the country, don't forget to add the national code +243. We are streaming this broadcast on State Affairs app on Google Play Store. So when you go on that store, you download the app and you can listen to us live from anywhere in the world. If you are using iPhone, go on Apple Store, download the app. Soon the app is going to be a 24-hour radio. You just go on the app at any time. You will listen to past editions of the program. So by next year, that app will be a 24-hour radio. And you can always listen to past editions of the program. We'll begin to upload past editions of the show on the app from December. But at the moment, you still have past editions of the program, but we will update it. And on the app, you can also leave your comments. It's a modern app. So download the app on Google Play Store. At the end of this show on Facebook, we are going to stream this program again on YouTube. So if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do that by looking for Edmondo Bilo on YouTube, and you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on X, that's Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. Just search for Edmondo Bilo. We'll begin to cut different parts of the program. We'll put them on Instagram, on LinkedIn, so that you have more time to digest the ideas being shared here. We've talked about Babangida. Now, there is a book I'll be recommending to you. Look at this book by Max Hewlin, Soldiers of Fortune, Nigerian Politics from Buhari to Babangida, 1983 to 1993. You look at this work. If you want to study how the military governed from 1983 to 1993, when Babangida handed over, did he hand over? When he stepped aside and Shonekon took over. This is the book for you. You will get this book on udarabooks.com. Go on the store, udarabooks.com, and get your copy of this work. The years between 1984 and 1993 were momentous for Nigeria. Military rule crafted the conditions and character of today's society, forcing cataclysmic changes on the political, economic, and religious landscape that nearly tore the country apart on several occasions. Soldiers of Fortune is a fast-paced, thrilling yet objective analysis of the major events of the Buhari and Babangida eras. The book reveals the true story behind past controversies, such as the annulment of the June 12 election, the execution of Mamad Vassar, the foiled kidnapping of Umaru Diko, the Oka coups, and the assassination of Dele Giwa. Read this book and enjoy politics and history. Another book I am recommending to you. He talked about the Oka coup there. The author of this book is one of the executioners of the Oka coup. Look at this classical work on the Oka coup. It is entitled Exploitation and Instability in Nigeria, The Oka Coup in Perspective, written by Sowaribi Tulafari. Hey, read this book if you are interested in Nigerian history, politics, and power. The Oka coup almost succeeded, but somehow Babangida survived the coup. So what happened? Why did they plan the coup? What was their intention? Is it that they wanted to take the North away from Nigeria? This book tells the story how they almost got Babangida and Perhaps he escaped by the whiskers. A classical work on Nigeria's political history. Read this book, Exploitation and Instability in Nigeria. You'll find it on udarabooks.com. You can also buy the book through the WhatsApp numbers pinned to this broadcast. Just send us a message and we will find you a copy. Yes. Look at this one. The Tale of June 12, the betrayal of democratic rights of Nigeria. Written by Professor Omar Omori. Look at this work. Sid, I recommend this work to you. Read this book. Omar Omori was critical to the Babangida project. He was your colleague at some point. Yeah. Tell me about him.
He was the Director General of the Center for Democratic Studies. When I was Director of Studies, I was my boss. And we were both students at the University of Ibadan, and we were also colleagues in the Department of Political Science, University of Ibadan. And it was his contact with Babangida was that he was in the first set, what they call Sec 1 of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. That was the 1979 set. I was in the 1980 set. And so that's where he met Babangida and they became friends.
So when Babangida invited him to join his government, he came to the department and invited intellectuals like you.
Babangida told him that I know a little bit about how the center came into being and that I should invite me to work with him. And I agreed.
So many of you in that Department of Political Science were thinking for Babangida?
We were thinking for Nigeria. But because Babangida was the symbol of Nigeria at the point, we interacted with him.
Omar Omori was disappointed that Babangida did not keep to his promise.
Yeah, he was disappointed, but he did not show enough courage about that disappointment.
Why did you say so?
Because, see, when the when the decree that brought Shonekan in was being worked on, he had the opportunity to advise against it, but he did not.
Why?
Because he found that maybe the ties of friendship were stronger than the role of advisor. And so he succumbed to the ties of friendship. Because he had the opportunity to say something about it. He talked to me about it, and I told him that for me, Shonekan was not a successor because Shonekan never contested election.
You wanted MKO?
If we had conducted the election and MKO won, I was not convinced that he did anything because they did not even tell the public what he did wrong. We were told that there were intelligence reports about this and that and so on. But then the intelligence reports came before the election. It should have been used before the election, not after the election.
Babangida said if he did not annul the election, there would have been a military coup.
That's how it's unfortunate that a general would chicken out of that.
Did he chicken out?
Yeah, well, he was commander-in-chief. So if he had an idea there would be a coup, he should have gone ahead to deal with the coup.
Eventually, he set up the interim national government, and there was a coup. Abacha took over.
Of course.
Was that a coup?
Well, in a way, it wasn't a coup. It was an arrangement. Because that's already inscribed in the interim national government decree, that if Shonekan fails, then the most senior military man should take over. First of all, why would you think that Shonekan will fail? To say that he will fail means that you already assume he should fail. And then you have appointed somebody to take over.
And he took over.
And he took over. So it wasn't a coup, it was a succession. And it was planned.
And Abacha began his lies.
And Abacha then decided that he would stay on. And he decided, he went ahead to establish political parties, dissolved all the parties, and then decided to establish 5 political parties. And Chief Bola Ige described those 5 political parties as 5 fingers on a leprous hand, because they were the same. They were on the same hand. They were all, you just split the same thing into 5. And eventually, the 4 of the 5 parties accepted Abacha as their candidate for the presidency. Technically, Abacha wasn't a member of any of the parties. So how come the parties now adopt him as their presidential candidate? The normal rule is that a presidential candidate will be one of the members of the political party. In this case, a party was appointing somebody not in their party to become the president of the country.
The plan was that he would be the consensus candidate.
Well, if it's going to be consensus, then you allow the parties to vote and concede that. Not that the leaders would say, he's our man. Because there has also been what some of us see as organized support. Boys asking for Abacha. And everybody, they say...
Youth earnestly ask for Abacha. led by Daniel Kanu.
Yes, and so... The
2 million man march.
Yeah, a million march man, and that kind of thing. All that drama was going on. So it wasn't as if the thing was normal. It's organized, it's orchestrated.
He lied to Abiola. Abiola fell for his lies.
Yeah, Abiola fell for his lies because they had been together for years. And there was a level of trust. So the lie was also a betrayal.
He said he was going to hand over
He said he was going to hand over.
And Abiola
nominated some of the members of the executive for him. So everything was going well, but the man who is a strategist and master of deception played him out and eventually arrested him. And of course, he died in the custody.
Abacha also died at some point.
Well, Abacha died. All sorts of stories about that. But what we know is that he died. And Abiola also died, mysteriously too.
So what we have established, that Babangida lied.
Yes.
And ended up badly.
Right.
Abacha lied.
Of course.
And ended up badly.
Yeah.
Let's look at Obasanjo. One of Obasanjo's lie, according to what you wrote here, is his third-term agenda.
Third-term agenda.
El-Rufai, who later became the governor of Kaduna State, was a minister under Olusegun Obasanjo. Before El-Rufai became a governor, I took him up on the third-term agenda. Let's listen.
Obasanjo only began to try to get interested in controlling the PDP around the middle of 2005. Until then, look, people forgot that in 2003, Obasanjo had to go and beg Atiku to support him to be president because he had no control over the party. People forget that, and they turn around and say Obasanjo was this dictator. It was only from about 2005, when Obasanjo was leaving office, that he began to see the need to have a greater say on how the party was run, so that he would determine his successor. That was when he pushed out.
So that he could fight for a third term.
Okay, initially to fight for a third term, and then to determine his successor. That was when Audu Ogba was pushed out. Until then, Obasanjo had very little control over the party.
So there was a third term agenda.
There was a third term.
Can you tell us about it?
I don't want to say anything about it because I want to write about it at the right time.
Were you among the ministers pushing for a third term?
No, I was not. I was one of those opposed.
Why were you opposed to it?
Because I didn't believe it was right. I believe that you build democracy by doing your bit and moving on and allowing succession.
Was Obasanjo happy with you?
He was not.
But Obasanjo has denied there was a third term agenda.
Well, you should ask him. I know that there was a third term agenda.
You knew about the millions of naira that were sent to the National Assembly?
Monies were distributed to members of the National Assembly, true.
The Obasanjo government was a corrupt government.
Look, there is no government in the world that is not corrupt. The issue is how corrupt is it? Okay? From time, every government has some bit of corruption. There is no society without corruption. But when you say sweeping statement like Obasanjo was a corrupt government, you are not being fair. And why are you asking me about Obasanjo's government? I was minister of the FCT. Can you ask me if the FCT was a corrupt administration?
You were like a de facto vice president when Atiku was in trouble.
That is your opinion. Obasanjo and Atiku's problem started around 2006. That was when they fell out. So between 2003 and 2006, I was not de facto vice president. When did I become de facto vice president? These are all stories that people put around, to create. I was minister of the Federal Capital Territory. Okay, don't ask me to defend Obasanjo's government because
you were beyond that ministry.
No, because I was one out of 45 ministers. Ask me to defend my.
You were Obasanjo's right-hand man.
Obasanjo did not have one right hand. Ngozi was Obasanjo's right-hand woman. Obi Ezekwesili was Obasanjo's right-hand woman. Nuhu Ribadu was Obasanjo's right-hand man. Charles Soludo was Obasanjo's right-hand man.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
Prof, Erufai confirms there was a third term agenda.
Yeah.
Obasanjo will never agree.
Well, it's that's what I called the cowardice of courage. Because if you went as far as planning a third term, which is a violation of the Constitution, you should have enough courage to tell the public what happened. And I would say that there was nothing secret about it. The public knew it. The public saw it. The members of the National Assembly knew it. Some of them benefited from the campaign for third term. The members of the National Political Reform Conference in 2005 knew something was coming because
you were a member.
I was a member. And there was an attempt to present a ready-made constitution to the 2005 National Political Reform Conference. And it was rejected by the National Political Reform Conference. And on the basis of that, the National Reform Conference ended abruptly.
Who wanted to present that constitution?
There were some of the ministers from government who were also members of the National Political Reform Conference.
So are you saying that that National Political Reform Conference was one of the lies of Obasanjo?
Definitely, he never wanted the Reform Conference. It was only because of pressure And because he had his own agenda, that he agreed to it.
He deceived the nation?
Of course, because this time he had an agenda which was personal, not necessarily a national agenda.
But he brought in men like Professor Ayoade, other Nigerians to Abuja.
Well, we were brought in by our states. And I was brought in as somebody who knows a little bit about federalism. That's why I was appointed. And unfortunately, the way we run our constitutional conferences, we cannot get anything good out of it. There were over 400 people in that assembly, and each person was invited to come and make a 2-minute, 3-minute speech, what you intend to do, what you think the Constitution should be. 3 minutes. I don't know what you could say in 3 minutes that would be meaningful. And then we went into committees and so on. And of course, there were people doing the legwork here and there and so on. You do not draft a constitution in the market. It will not work. You draw a constitution with people who know what a constitution is supposed to be.
Is it like what Obasanjo did before the 1979 election?
Yeah, Murtala Mohammed appointed, the 49 wise men?
Yes.
And they sat down. And then Babangida did the political bureau, appointed some people, they did the spade work. So, but to now go to the marketplace and say, all right, everybody, what do you think?
But is that not what Nigerians are always calling for?
Nigerians could call for that, but you know how to manage it. The real constitution is going to be produced by those who know, not by the market women and market men.
Is that what Abdulsalami did to produce the 1999 constitution?
Abdulsalami just took over part of what Abacha did, and they wrote it up, and it became the 1999 constitution.
Written by experts?
Written by experts, but experts that were self-selected or that were selected by the military.
Is that constitution going to guide Nigeria to progress?
It has shown that it cannot. It cannot. And Nigeria is in need of a constitution that deals with the issues and problems of Nigeria. Not a constitution that is thought out by just the leadership.
What do you have in mind?
What I have in mind is our history has told us what our problems are. And it is time for us to now glean out of that history and work out something that answers our problems. Not one in which somebody says, I don't mind if eventually they say Nigeria is a must. Fine. But then we must arrive at it logically and seriously to say this is where we are going. Not that somebody will tell us where we should go.
If you had the choice, would you prefer the independence model?
You know, I started this discussion by saying if a country has a better past than its present, it has a problem. Our past constitutions were better because they were realistic. Realistic in the sense that they took the mirror image of Nigeria and designed things workable for that image of the country.
And that image has not changed.
In spite of everything that we have done, it has not changed.
It is still the Igbo people, the Yoruba people.
Yes.
The Fulani.
Till tomorrow, The Yorubas will not be other people except Yorubas.
So you want a regional system?
Not necessarily a regional system, but a system that allows freedom of those who need that freedom to be able to move on their own within the same country.
When you say freedom, is that secession?
No, not secession. Like in the First Republic, they had freedom. Awolowo was able to do things for the Western region that he thought was in the interest of the Western region. What I want is a system, a political system that is competitive, that allows each of the parts, however we define it, to be able to do what is good for its own people.
So you don't want
what is appropriate for its own people.
Not a strong center.
A strong center is a waste. You cannot have a strong center when there is so much diversity. And somebody will now sit in Abuja and tell people in Ibadan when to sleep and when to wake up. That's counterproductive.
Tinubu is there now. Do you think he will make a difference?
Tinubu is working within a framework. He needs to change that framework before he can arrive at what we are talking about.
They don't always change the framework. They tend to like the framework when they get there.
Well, if they like the framework, then they are not working in the interest of the country.
You said generally, as shown above, Nigerian political leaders demonstrate the three major characteristics. The first is that they push power beyond elastic limits. They invest the most to achieve least. They deliberately consume poison, believing they can vomit it at will. While one was alleged to have bankrolled several candidates for the post of president in order to deliberately create pandemonium, the other bankrolled 5 different political parties to nominate him as their consensus candidate. Their lies are worse than fiction, because paradoxically, fictions, according to Gaiman, tells us true things. The second characteristic is that they are not in the habit of repenting from their evil deeds. And you said it's no wonder Nigeria don't have heroes.
Yeah. Our leaders, once they get there, are consumed by their own personality. And they forget that they were put there in the interest of some people. They become ambitious and they want to perpetuate themselves in office. And by perpetuating themselves in office, they run the country down.
Well, we have looked at the lecture Political Lies and Lying to the Nigerian Public. A lecture delivered by John Ayoade, Emeritus Professor of Political Science, University of Ibadan. John Ayoade is a former President, Nigerian Political Science Association, a former Director of Studies, Center for Democratic Studies, Abuja. He was a Dean of the Faculty of the Social Sciences, University of Ibadan. And he was a member of the National Political Reform Conference. After, you never left the University of Ibadan. That's why you are emeritus, right?
Yes.
Your office is still there?
Yes.
Do you still teach?
I mentor.
You mentor?
Yes.
Who is
I supervise PhD.
Who is an emeritus professor?
An emeritus professor is a professor who continues to work and continues to be relevant after his initial retirement. So the university feels that there is still something that it can offer the system, and so is appointed an emeritus for life.
For life?
Yes.
Your office will be there for life?
Yes.
Because the last time I went there, I still saw your name.
Well, we thank God.
Professor John Ayoade at some point became the Dean Faculty of Social and Management Sciences, Bowen University. He would later become Provost, College of Social and Management Sciences, Bowen University. Ayoade has explained the lecture he delivered in 2002, the Billy Dudley Lecture. Prof, thank you for featuring on State Affairs.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be with you.
As I go, let me introduce you to these books. Classic, Nigeria, Descent into Anarchy and Collapse. One of the editors of the book is John Ayoade, my guest. If you read this work, you have collection of analysis, political analysis on Nigeria, written by scholars. I love edited works because they are the ideas of more than one person. You read different topics like Nigeria's Disamalgamation, a chronicle of the codes and conduct of its advocate, written by Richard Olaniyan and A.O. Ogunyemi. There's another topic here, that's chapter 2, Federal Governability, Abuja and the Rest of Nigeria, written by Victor Adetula. There was one I quoted copiously in my master's degree, that is The National Question, written by Victor Isomuna and Adigun Agbaje. Hey, if you love reading and you can afford books, this is one book you should have. Nigeria Descent into Anarchy and Collapse. Read it. One of the editors is John Ayoade. His co-editors are Adeoye Akinsoya and Olatunde Ojo. Classical work. Then the last book I will be introducing to you before I wrap up this edition of State Affairs is this book, also edited by John Ayoade, one of the editors. The Jonathan Presidency, the sophomore year. You see this? The Jonathan Presidency, the sophomore year. If you are interested in getting these books, contact us on WhatsApp. Udara Books WhatsApp number pinned to this broadcast. From next week, they will be on the store, udarabooks.com. Thank you for joining the broadcast. Don't forget to join me tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. I worked with Tosin Ayeni Oladele to bring you this edition of the program. Tosin is a documentary photographer. Ayo Ashimolowo streaming to the word. Ayo is a videographer. And Samuel Kalu also streaming to the word. I have Miriam Giwa here too. Together, we brought you this edition of State Affairs. I am Edmondo Bilo. Thank you for listening.